But yesterday we spoke with President Trump about Jay Powell's replacement. Joining us now. Well, let's listen. Here we go.
And I have two other people that are doing well. Look, it's in the end, there are numerous people that are qualified. No, I think that it'll be one of four people.
Are the other
I'm not going to make
names...
the decision soon.
Joining us now, Krishna Guha, Vice Chairman at Evercore ISI, and the Journal actually has a lead story on what we were talking about, Krishna, and that is whether this other unexpected resignation from Adriana Kugler opens up a different path, and whether, strategy-wise, what would be, if you were the president, what would you do?
Well, look, right now, the president essentially has two options. One is he can put a stopgap appointment in to fill the Kugler seat for the remaining 4 months of the unexpired term. So just a stopgap between now and January, and then keep his options open as to what to do with that seat in January and whether to use that at that time to put in place the person he wants to succeed Powell as Fed Chair in May. Or he could just decide to compress the entire process and decide to pick the person he wants to be the next Fed Chair now and give them that Kugler seat, obviously not just for the 4 months, but then for the full term that begins in January as well. All, of course, subject to Senate confirmation.
Exactly. What would be, knowing the president, maybe not knowing everything about him, but having, he was president before, this is his second term. What do you think is going into his decision-making on those two options you just said? I mean, does he want to pick someone for 14 years now, or does he want a test run? Does he, knowing what we know about him, what do you think is more likely?
So to be honest, and I don't claim to know the mind of Donald Trump, but to be honest, I suspect he's a bit conflicted right now. Right? Because on the one hand, he's deeply frustrated with Chair Powell. He would like to have the next chair sort of out there, identified, speaking to the market, speaking to the public, starting to try to shift the debate in the direction that Trump favors, namely deeper, sooner rate cuts. However, we know from the way that Trump likes to operate that he likes to run things like Celebrity Apprentice. He likes to have people trialing, dueling it out with each other. So he might also be tempted with the idea of putting somebody in seat for a few months, see how they do. Do they pass the audition to then be given the nod for next Fed Chair? So I suspect he's probably pulled in both directions there.
Because 14 years is a long time, and if he got someone in there and then they were more hawkish than he expected based on market conditions, he'd be like, oh, why didn't I go for the trial one? But I'm sure he'd love to have, we've been calling it a shadow Fed Chair in there, where at the next couple of meetings you'd have the presumed successor to Jay Powell. I mean, he could go head-to-head with Jay Powell if there's still resistance to ease. I think so. It's going to be fascinating.
That's right, and I think certainly the president is attracted, by all accounts, by the idea of having somebody as a shadow Fed Chair type heir apparent, potentially trying to wrestle the steering wheel away from Powell even before Powell's term is up next May. I would caution, though, that I think that reflects to some extent a lack of granular understanding as to how the Fed actually operates and makes decisions. A shadow Fed Chair, even someone designated as heir apparent, who has a seat at the table, who's given, for instance, the Kugler seat, is still just going to be one person among many, not even enjoying the powers of the office of the chairman for the best part of another year. It's going to be very hard, actually, for that person to really move the dial in terms of policy making. I think this committee, the vast majority of it, is extremely loyal to Jay Powell right now, more loyal than ever because of the political pressure put on him. So you risk putting the so-called shadow Fed Chair in a very awkward situation where the president is expecting that person to start wrestling control of monetary policy, but the committee is simply not going to allow that to happen. And the risk is if the new person tries too hard, they risk souring the relationships with the people who they're going to have to lead going forward, presumably in the direction of lower rates that the president wants.
I don't think they're that low. We had 2 dissents, and if you add a third, you add another loyalist in there.
Let's be really clear here. The Bowman Waller dissents are sui generis, right? These are 2 people. I'm sure the views they hold are sincere, but these are 2 Trump appointees. They are both potentially in line for promotion, possibly to the chair position. And even if another person was added to that, it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to the actual decision-making of the Fed majority if we went from 2 dissents to 3 dissents. The majority of the committee is with Powell. They'll be with Powell until the end.
What is the end when his term is up in May of next year? Do you think
May,
that a new chairman, but you think a new chairman who is appointed or a new chair who's appointed at that point is going to have a much better chance of winning over the committee? Is this a situation where no matter when they go in, they're going to have difficulty?
The Fed is a very chairman-centric organization, as you guys know, and you've explained to viewers in the past. This committee traditionally defers considerably to the chair's judgment, obviously informed by staff analysis and so on, as to what the right path for monetary policy should be, within some basic tram lines represented by the wider committee's judgment as to what kind of reasonable policy might look like in the period ahead. So once the new person takes over as chair, they will be in a position where they have substantially more influence over policymaking. But unless, which I think is possible, but unless there is a further series of voluntary resignations from current Fed board members, even after May, the new chair plus his or her allies will still be a minority on the committee. So while the committee will certainly be deferential at the margin, they will not be able to wrench the reaction function policy in a completely different direction. They will have to negotiate with the balance of the committee in terms of what monetary policy is going to look like going forward.
So you can't read Trump's mind, but who do you think's in the pole position? You think Waller, Warsh, Hassett? You even mentioned David Malpass, I think, as sort of a dark horse.
Yeah, look, honestly, I think this comes down to sort of, Trump's personal preferences. So I'm not going to claim that I have an insight into, his private thinking. I think there is buzz, as you know, that Kevin Hassett might be a nose ahead because he's the person that Trump knows the most, has worked with most closely, and views as a loyalist. Kevin Warsh still very much in play. I think Chris Waller, his star has been rising a bit of late, particularly as he's taken a strong position in favor of a rate cut and has proven to be far-sighted in terms of his assessment of the labor market might be weaker than some of the data had been suggesting. So I think the race is still very much open. I think those 3 are probably, ahead of David Malpass, but Malpass is a serious guy himself, so I wouldn't exclude him.
If it was The Apprentice, you're fired. There'd be like that's similar, or American Idol, where there's like the 5th and then the 4th, and then, there's only 3 left. We got a little bit of that yesterday. Scott Bessent is out, so now we've reportedly, according to the president. So that narrows it down. I wonder if that will continue. Where now he's out, and it gets down to it's kind of a little bit of both. But I used to love the hand movement. I mean, you knew when you got fired.
You certainly did.